We would like to understand the opinion of the GBS heads, how they see the future of GBS. The report, first, the pandemic just ended, so we feel that there is something different. There is a change.
When you look at the dynamics of the industry, and GBS is in Kraków, this has been rather impressive. It's fair to say, I suppose.
Yeah.
There are huge variables now, like the war in Ukraine, the pandemic in the past 2 years. So if you look ahead for the next 3 to 5 years, what is your first impression?
It's going to be overwhelmingly successful.
And if you look at the talent versus the cost, as I mentioned, it's probably the best place in Europe to be.
We talked about the past 2 years, and one of the key words that came to your mind was unpredictable, very difficult to predict. If you were to give me one word to describe the upcoming 2 years, what would be your adjective of choice? The next 2 years are going to be?
How about fun?
Thank you very much, Bill Gillette. It's been a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Hey, hello there, and welcome to Kraków Calling. So we're going to have some fun, apparently. On today's program, 2 big topics. After the pandemic, the future of tech and GBS. We'll be asking what 2 new reports are telling us. Before that, Ukraine. We're 12 weeks into the war. What does it mean for us, and how can we help? My name is Andrew Hallam. I am your host. We're on TV. I'm not sure I needed to say that because they probably put it here. What we have today is an invited audience of business and community leaders, together with a panel of their peers. During the course of the program, I shall be asking both to share their thoughts and give their views. We will be speaking to one special guest joining us online that we will be calling up on Zoom in Lviv. Not least, of course, yourselves, those of you that are watching online, on YouTube, from across the globe, near and far. So before we get started, a shout out to our partners, to our hosts here at the Unity Centre, to those of you who know the recent history of Kraków. You know what an historic location this is. I got in the taxi, I asked to be driven to the Unity Centre, and the taxi driver didn't know. I then said Szkeletor. So everybody knew what Szkeletor was. It is a communist folly. It stood here for probably 60 years, unfinished. But in the last 2 years, it is a testimony to the transformation that is taking place in Kraków, a transformation which is partly driven by our industry of technology and global business services. So thank you to the Unity Centre, who are our venue partner. To the city of Kraków, who are our strategic partner. As an industry, we think that Kraków is lucky to have us, and I think that's true. But what's equally true is we are lucky to have Kraków. Also to Adaptive Solutions, an advisory group. They're joint authors of the GBS report that we shall be taking a deep dive into later. Okay, one last thing before we start. A request to everyone at home watching on YouTube. Please click the like, share, and subscribe buttons.
And call you.
Can you believe that? Right, okay. Sorry. I was supposed to say switch off your telephone before we start. Okay, where was I? The like, share, and subscribe buttons. Okay, if you're in Kraków, please share the news that the program is happening with your fellow 100,000 plus colleagues. And if you're from outside Kraków, then please also share, because we'd like you to come and work for us. So, on to our first topic. To introduce this topic, we have prepared a short film. It's how Kraków has responded to war in Ukraine. So if you could play the film, please.
Over the past 3 months, Kraków has effectively become a much larger city. It is estimated that nearly 180,000 Ukrainian refugees have come to Kraków since February 24th. Out of this figure, 42,000 are children. Some of those refugees have stayed in Kraków, many have traveled and stayed in neighboring towns and cities, some have moved further to the west to other European cities. In short, the answer to why, what and how may be one of the most extraordinary case studies in refugee crisis management in Polish history, definitely, but I would even say in European and global history. When you walk about the streets of Kraków, you will notice nothing extraordinary. The city is buzzing with life. It's the beginning of the tourism season, and lots of people in the streets, dozens of languages can be heard, so nothing seems to have changed on the face of things. Perhaps one of the most important things that should be acknowledged here is that many of those people have not only found safety, food and refuge, but a sense of dignity restored to them, because they have found all those things not in improvised shelters or reception points mostly, but in private homes. Literally thousands of people travel to the Polish-Ukrainian border with their private cars to collect Ukrainian families, mothers with children, and bring them to their own homes. This is one of the things that makes the situation truly extraordinary. So of course I could be giving you all the official figures, like 960 tons of goods, 69 lorries and 137 truckloads of priority goods transported to Lviv and other Ukrainian cities. But that's not the full story, because in addition to all that, there have been countless private and collective initiatives collecting all sorts of goods and transporting them between friends to Ukrainian cities, Ukrainian borders. So it's not only NGOs, official city agencies, large businesses and international corporations, but it's people who responded to this crisis with their hearts.
Panie prezydencie, mijają 3 miesiące od rosyjskiej inwazji w Ukrainie. Jedni się jej spodziewali, dla innych była kompletnym zaskoczeniem. Gdy patrzy Pan na to, co się wydarzyło w Krakowie przez te 3 miesiące, to jakie są Pana pierwsze przemyślenia?
Dla mnie osobiście była ogromnym zaskoczeniem, muszę powiedzieć, że nie przypuszczałem, że do niej dojdzie. A drugim zaskoczeniem była błyskawiczna organizacja ludzi, którzy bardzo spontanicznie do tego podeszli. Pan prezydent Majchrowski miał następnego dnia rozmowę z merem Lwowa, gdzie spotkał się z apelem o różnego rodzaju pomoc. Jeszcze tego samego dnia zaapelował do mieszkańców Krakowa. No i organizacja mieszkańców była po prostu fenomenalna. Zresztą nie tylko mieszkańców Krakowa, bo to chcę bardzo silnie podkreślić, przyjeżdżali do nas ludzie także spod krakowskich miejscowości, także tych dalszych, i przywozili spontanicznie zorganizowaną pomoc. Szybko zorganizowaliśmy tymczasowy magazyn na stadionie Wisły i przez pewien moment, stosunkowo krótki, wydawało nam się, że to będzie absolutnie wystarczająca przestrzeń. No, w ciągu 36 godzin on został w pełni zapełniony i musieliśmy natychmiast organizować kolejne przestrzenie magazynowe. No i tutaj nieprawdopodobnie wielka pomoc biznesu nastąpiła. Najpierw biznesu naszego, miejskiego, spółki Wodociągi Miasta Krakowa, ale zaraz później także prywatnych podmiotów, które udostępniły nam swoje hale magazynowe za darmo, podkreślam. Korzystamy z nich zresztą do dnia dzisiejszego. Gromadzimy tam różnego rodzaju dary, ale także pomoc zorganizowaną, bo tutaj uruchomiły się kolejne duże przedsiębiorstwa, duży biznes, który zaczął organizować różnego rodzaju dary bezpośrednio kierowane na Ukrainę, a my staliśmy się takim miejscem przerzutowym dla tych darów na Ukrainę. Jest to wspólny sukces mieszkańców naszego miasta, organizacji naszego miasta, ale także biznesu, który przyszedł nam z ogromną pomocą, nie tylko logistyczną, ale także finansową i, co jest także godne podkreślenia, intelektualną. Ilość wolnych miejsc pracy wcale się nie zmniejszyła w naszym mieście, to znaczy, że zostali oni wchłonięci przez pracodawców bardzo szybko i myślę, że przyczyniają się do rozwoju naszego miasta. Tutaj zresztą także duża rola podmiotów gospodarczych funkcjonujących w naszym mieście, dużych przedsiębiorców, którzy wykorzystali tą siłę dodatkowych pracowników z korzyścią dla siebie.
We have just presented the city perspective, what this city has done, but Kraków Calling is about
a structured approach of global businesses present in Kraków and what we want to do next. This is what I'm sure Andrew is now keen to discuss during the Kraków Calling. Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you, Łukasz. He always sets me up in that way. That's not actually what I want to discuss first of all. Actually, I'd like to start with this, right? And Łukasz mentioned that in his report. So I wasn't in Kraków when the war broke out. And when I came, the thing that really surprised me is I couldn't see any refugees. There were no refugee camps, all right? And so just in terms of the way that we generally think about refugees, we think of refugee camps, people think of people in these refugee camps, and something else had happened here in Poland. Now, Łukasz mentioned about this kind of private response to the crisis. And I wonder if anybody would like to just pick up on what those first few days were like and what your own emotional responses were.
If I may go first,
Please, Gabriela.
Andy. Gabriela Staniakowa, Kimberly Clark, leading the center here in Kraków for 4 years. And I'm Slovak. Yeah, so I always tend to believe that Slovak and Polish people have very close culture, right? And which is the case here. So when the war started, because if I think about how we were living together with Polish people and Ukrainian people, they already built the story together, right? From 2014, people were coming here, they were, looking for the job, looking for opportunity. So together with other centers, I'm sure you had also people from Ukraine already in your center working for you. So there was already this cultural proximity built, with this a couple of years before. So when the war started, I think the Polish people didn't even think about, what I need to do. They just went there, and just started to help. And I think, from the movie, you could see this dignity. It's super important, right? Because, if you are in the war and you feel beaten up as a nation, right, you need to recover somehow. And it's this safety because women were coming here. So I remember the next day when the war started, I had asked to go and pick up somebody on the border, and I sent a leadership team, can you help? And in 2 minutes, I had replies. So Polish people have these warm hearts, they know the culture already, and they were able to accommodate these people immediately to provide them the safe place, the family place, which I think was the very first one, very important. But, that's just the beginning.
Okay, but let's hold on. So thank you very much. I mean, just in terms of anybody else, in terms of the immediate response.
I would say, Andy, that the immediate response was like spontaneous, and we've got all these young people working in our centres, and their immediate reaction was, well, what can I do to help? And it wasn't just them; it was their families. To the point, that there was already a well-established link with colleagues from Ukraine, but people just wanted to do something. There was an immediate, I think, shock at the actual outbreak of the war, but that shock or that anchor quickly switched into some, what can we do that's positive out of this situation? It was really remarkable how quickly people responded.
Okay. I mean, one thing that maybe for our audience that's watching elsewhere is really to understand, and it was a surprise to me that although in those first weeks we had 150,000 people that were coming in for Ukraine, we already had in Kraków 60,000 people that were living and working in Ukraine. From 2014 onwards, probably. When people were arriving here. So, Philippe, maybe I could come to you because you run a tech company, and I think many of the people that, many of Ukrainians that are here are actually working in tech. What was happening in Akamai at the time?
Yeah, so I think one of the key reasons why it turned out into such a great experience with people opening their hearts, homes, pockets, was actually the fact that Krakow was always, also thanks to the industry and strong academical hub, a very open, multicultural city before that. I think it played a certain role, including 60,000 of Ukrainians who were already here. Because if you're escaping from the war, you're looking for proximity, physical proximity, distance proximity, cultural, language proximity. And I think the fact that the 60,000 of Ukrainians were here didn't give them just the chance to actually get some contacts with some of the relatives or friends, but actually, and that was the case for many actually of our industries trying to help, this is the SME approach, right? Those Ukrainians who were here on the ground became our SMEs, in fact. So when same for Akamai Technologies, the first thing we did was we had no clue how to deal with we knew how to do giving back, right? We do CSR, we do charity, but how to help refugees, no one prepared us for that. So, and then we realized, come on, we don't have to know it, right? It's enough if we will follow the ones who know. And who knows that? Well, actually, we identified that out of the 60,000 people in Krakow from Ukraine, 24 works for Akamai. So I think that was one of the reasons why we were so successful, because we had SMEs. They told us what to do, right? So we followed their best practice. And really, when I see what we did, the first thing, we focused on the group, we listened to their needs, and they told us how to react.
Yeah. So could I also pick up on that when we ask about what companies did? I mean, what was the biggest role that companies fulfilled? Would anybody like to pick up on that?
I can pick up, Andrew. I think for me what was very different to anything that we had dealt with is, as Philip said, we didn't have a recipe for that, but the recipe actually became listening to what needs to be done. That was basically listening to all the ideas, great ideas that people had, and then helping to facilitate that. So almost having that, typically we've got strategies, then they get disseminated, to the centers, when we talk about business. This time it's everyone coming together, listening to the needs, understanding, but it was also quite sensitive. You have to be very sensitive, of course, what questions you ask. At the beginning, it was like, how do we talk to people? How do we support them, those who are directly impacted? How do we support wider groups who actually are in shock, and some are afraid of the war coming to Poland? That was real emotions that we worked with. So I think that listening and adjusting and accommodating to each ever-changing situation every day was really critical. And again, that being brought from employees up to the, to the company leadership, and company leadership reacting and following this advice, and getting organized and helping to facilitate that. And it was quite amazing actually, because you could see that we suddenly started. I mean, all the kind of barriers would be, would not be there, and everyone would be working together just to one goal, to help and facilitate that help.
So is this like a sense of? This is less about a kind of top-down approach where companies say, well, we're going to donate $1 million to this effort or whatever. This is more about kind of harnessing the appetite and the energy and the enthusiasm and the need of people working in our centers.
Absolutely. And at the beginning, we did, so obviously that was the automatic approach. How much can we donate? We said we don't know yet where to and what to, right? Of course we can gather those goods and and bring that all together, but actually we need to make sure that we accommodate all the needs that were there. So I think, it was really, really good to see that basically, all the ideas that were coming, and each day brought something different, were listened to and reacted to, rather than, okay, let's as you said, give £1 million or dollars, whatever currency we're working in, and then let's do something, by donating. It wasn't that at all.
Okay.
You remember, Andrew, that when your first meeting, for the Krakow Center leadership team?
Online?
Online, you remember?
Don't remind me.
How many people joined that?
Well, 80, 85.
80 people.
80.
This is how important the topic was for people, to listen and to hear from other companies what they are doing and what we can learn from them, right? So I think, as Yola mentioned, and also Philip, right? It was about sharing. It was the sharing experience to help together, right? The best way we can.
Yeah. I said don't remind me only in that sense, because it was an incredibly emotional meeting as well. Yeah. It was, and an important meeting. I mean, Kasia, can I maybe come to you? Because I think, what we've been discussing here is really about how to work with the people that are working in our centres. Was that also really the same for the city, that it was kind of this how to harness the enthusiasm of the citizens of Kraków?
Well, it was indeed, because we are also employer as the city hall, big employer. So all employees from the city hall wanted to help also. They engaged in all those all those donations.
Mm-hmm.
So it was also something that I've never seen. And it was also new for me. I also remembered our meetings, online meetings about situation in Ukraine and in Kraków, and your questions about what we can do. And it would be very good for me just to tell you what to do, but it was really, the situation was changing all the time. And this was my main sentence that I said during those meetings.
It's an important point you make there, though. I mean, it's true. I mean, it's not just true of Ukraine, right? I mean, it's true of the whole situation over the last 20 years, I think, which is things change all the time, right? And it's your ability to be in a position to respond to change, right?
Yes.
Przemek, maybe I come to you at this point, right? Which is, I don't really want to make comparisons between the war in Ukraine and the pandemic, but nevertheless I am going to ask you to draw some comparisons, right? Which is, in terms of resilience, I mean, if you look back at 2 years ago, or March 2020, and what happened then, and then you look to February 2022 and what happened then, I mean, what would you draw any...
Yes, actually, our industry, I would say, generally demonstrated incredible resilience. We've learned a lot through the pandemic period. It was not only about moving to work from home, it was also about, adapting to the new situation, because in the COVID times we employed, onboarded people, so we had to do all those things in the remote work environment. In the same time, we collaborated with our colleagues, customers, vendors globally, located everywhere in this world, and we did it in a very efficient way. In the same time, I think it also proved to all of us how cybersecurity was important. So when the Ukrainian crisis came, I think majority of the companies already had a proven in battle the BCP plans in place. Also, people used to deal with crises, whatever it means for different companies. And then I think there was no surprise, even no single sign of panic. I would say professional, calm, and efficient handling of the situation by the companies.
Oh, okay. I mean, is there a sense in which, because I know we've been talking about BC plans for many years, and I remember when the Pope visited, or when we had the World Youth Days, for instance. But is it something that it's less a question that we as companies have planned for these things than there is something in the culture that we have contributed to, which means that people are able to respond incredibly resourcefully to these situations? Because after all, when I think within 24 hours we moved from offices into remote work.
Yeah, I mean, fair to say that in our region, because it's not only Poland, we had quite challenging history. That created, I would say, particular culture to be able to deal with different kind of difficulties. We did it actually. We've been doing this for years in the communism time, and then in this new reality after 1989 as well. People had to find themselves in the new situation, and I believe we continue. We have not lost this agility and this permanent and constant search for solutions, really, of the problems. People are really looking for solutions, and when something pops up, they try to do something about it. This is cultural thing.
I agree. It's problem solving, and we could see it in practice. And I think also coming together with all the initiatives, driven by the city. How sometimes our guys would come and help to organize, some of the initiatives there, because obviously everyone wanted to do their best. I think that problem solving, that kind of ability to, okay, digest what's happening, but then move and find solution. I think it's definitely in the DNA of the sector. And also, I agree with Przemek, here, I guess in Poland, I really do think that though, this time around, it was much more, from our experience, much more emotional resilience that we had to show, because it was not just not the war only, but also the fear of people, what's going to happen. And I think that was quite challenging as well. So I think it brought us to the next level of resilience, I think. Whereas, I did use that expression, COVID, then in that context, looked like an easy thing to manage because obviously it was more manageable in the way that, so I think, that resilience, that problem solving, but also being able to deal with different, levels of emotion was really important this time around.
Thank you.
Just to add on, Christian, with the adaptive solutions, if we consider that basically we were, as corporations, but also as individuals, a little bit prepared as corporations by COVID to handle these unknown circumstances, it is obviously the more serious one, even from the life of people safety perspective. But obviously we were not losing as corporations the time of this chop of communications, discussing only with the boards what will happen to our company, what will happen to the sector. It was quite obvious we knew what will happen. We all saw Syria. We also probably have seen the winter this year in Poland. That was also the first refugee crisis on the Belarusian border. So from that perspective, people quite well known what to do, and the companies didn't lose the time for this upper communication, maybe except those who were heavily involved in Russia or Ukraine business-wise, but all the rest were really focusing on allowing people or setting, or not losing the time, but simply setting the organization, whether this was project manager or the team, that will streamline that help, or that would streamline that voices that are coming from the floor or from the street, actually. And how to make them faster solved.
Thanks, Christian. I mean, I'm just wondering if there are any other, and again, it's difficult to know quite how to express this, but any other kind of positives that have really come out of this experience. And I was thinking, and Philippe, you mentioned something to me once about visibility. In the sense, and maybe you could explain what you mean by that.
And before I do that, I would add into the mix because we talked about our citizens' approach in Krakow. We talked about the city approach. I would add into the mix also non-governmental organizations. I think this is what shows. We discussed many times what smart city is about, right? Mm-hmm. And we know it's about the connections. It's about the connections between the business, NGOs, and the city and the industry. And when we look now, especially as we are transforming from short-term support for Ukraine to long-term support, the role of NGOs working close with the city, with the industries, is enormous. Going back to your question, yes, I think as the location, as the industry, as our companies, I've never felt so much of support and then so much of visibility and I think we truly became SMEs. We became SMEs not only for how to help refugees, because there were many of them.
SMEs being subject matter experts.
Subject matter experts, yes. Okay. We became experts on those. So and then we got invited into also it transitioned into not only visibility but also decision making. I remember many of us, not only at Akamai, we started to be looped in the business decisions around how do we work with Russian customers, how we communicate that, how we do explain that, and I think I'm not speaking only on behalf of Akamai, but on the industry, the level of visibility, influence, and showing the value, maturity of the leadership and the location as the truly advisory body for the business, not only locally, was enormous. I never observed that before.
Terrific. Okay. Okay. Let's hold it there. Romek, you've been holding your powder, as we say, because at this point we want to. This is called Kraków Calling. Okay. This is Kraków Calling to the world. We're actually going to call to Lviv now. I'm hoping this is going to work. It looks to me like it is working. So I'm going to hand over to you, Romek, and you can introduce your colleague there and tell us a little bit.
Cześć, Taras. This is a really great thing, and I hope you enjoy the next 15-20 minutes. Taras Skiba is our delivery center manager in Lvov. He runs a center of 360 people doing assurance, tax, and consulting work. He's been with PwC since 2008, and since he was a child. And he's been in the delivery center since 2018. And why Andrew and I thought it would be fantastic if we got him to talk to us today is he does our job, guys. He runs the center, right? He just happens to be in a war zone. And what I thought would be super interesting is to ask him, how's it going? And that's literally, we can start. You know, we watch the TV every single day. I watch it. I promise you, Taras, every day we watch. My wife gets very upset because it is upsetting. Tell us a little bit about what is it really like for one of us being there right now, a center manager living in Ukraine.
Yep. And just to confirm, the group hears me okay, right? The sound is okay, fantastic. Thanks for having me. I wanted to kick off with a couple words in Polish, if that's okay. Rozumiem, że większość ludzi tutaj to Polacy lub z Polski. Chcę wam podziękować za niesamowite wsparcie, jakie okazujecie mojemu krajowi i naszemu ludowi. Dziękuję bardzo. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for allowing me to share the experience of our Lviv SDC and how we managed and managing through these incredibly difficult times, and how we are focusing on support to our people. So in terms of how things are going now, I guess the vast majority of our employees, they have decided to stay in Ukraine. Some don't feel safe in the place of their residence. So we arranged for relocations, both within Ukraine and abroad. At this point, we have our staff located in close to 20 countries. Males are not allowed to leave the country. So in case of a male employee, we support their spouses and kids abroad while they themselves stay in Ukraine. I witnessed a few moments of separation, and they are nothing but heartbreaking. At one time, we had 2 of our employees beyond the occupation line. They spent a few weeks sheltering in their basements with no stable electricity supply or cell phone signal, and limited access to food and water. The times when they both went offline for a few days were absolutely devastating, but luckily they are both safe now. This sometimes makes you think about who gave some hostile nation and their leader a right to impact the lives of so many people. More so now, they hold the world hostage by blocking the wheat export. This war has reached far beyond Ukraine in its 4th month today. We ask people not to come to the office unless there's a critical need. It's a modern building with a lot of glass and is next to a railroad. Some of the explosions happened as close as a few hundred meters from the office. So we tried to minimize the number of staff on the ground. Our civil defense or air raid sirens indicating the aerial threat sound almost daily. We did have a couple of weeks here and there when it has been quiet, but starting some time ago, they sound almost every day. People get used to it. Even my daughter takes it much more calmly these days. She's 8, but she already knows that she has at least 20 minutes to get to safety. That's how much time it takes the missiles launched from Belarus to get to Lviv. In case of the Caspian region launch, that would be 40 minutes. The information, to be frank, I wish she didn't have to know. In case of an explosion, you first hear a loud noise followed by a vibration of your house. Surprisingly, the sound wave of such explosions travels pretty far, and you hear explosions as far as 30 kilometers away from your home, still quite vividly. I tried getting my family to leave at some point. Multiple PwC partners have offered to shelter them for however long is needed, but the kid says that she won't leave without her dad, and so does my spouse. Another reason not to come to the office is the shortage of fuel. The government capped the fuel prices, and that resulted in a deficit. So some stations, they don't sell fuel at all. Some do, but there's a limit of 10 to 20 liters per one car. The fuel's availability also depends on deliveries, and once it happens, you immediately see a huge line of cars there. On average, you can spend 2 hours getting some fuel. So on the positive side, people did become much more environmentally friendly these days. They avoid taking a car, they use public transport, walk and ride bikes or electric scooters. The shortage of groceries that we've experienced in the first weeks seems to be resolved now. We have much more Polish produce in our markets in Lviv these days. That's noticeable. I also think that at this point, pretty much every Ukrainian has someone at the front lines these days. One of our folks is at ground zero. He says that he's as close as hearing them talk. The flyby time of most weapons at such distance is under just 1 second. A relative of mine has recently been discharged from the army after their group came under artillery attack. He was lucky to end up with some non-life-threatening injuries. However, a few guys in his group have been killed. We're doing our best to support those who have joined the army and their territorial defense forces, both financially and by providing them with the necessary equipment. We collect the money through internal fundraising initiative. Then there's a team on the ground working on the list of needs, including search, negotiation, acquisition, and logistics. That's the least we can do for them while they're risking their lives for the defense of our country. And we are certainly hoping they will be back soon, safe and sound.
Agreed, Taras. We're with you there for sure. You mentioned things like the petrol lines, and you mentioned a couple of things. What's the inflation? What's the economics? Tell me, is that another angle of hardship now?
Yeah, economics is holding. It's actually holding pretty well given the circumstances, but the outlook is not very optimistic. So I already mentioned the situation with fuel. The fuel prices have gone up roughly 70%. But even at that price, you still have a mismatch between demand and supply. The FX rate is fixed. But the official exchange rate shows that the local currency has depreciated already by 30%. The optimistic damage assessments to GDP show a forecast of about 20–30% loss. The pessimistic ones go far beyond that, unfortunately. The inflow of people seeking safety in the west of Ukraine has caused the surge in prices, both as it comes to rentals and living costs like groceries. Double-digit inflation is not something new to Ukrainians, but we're likely talking about something in the range of 20s. at least.
Yeah. And you mentioned the centre that no one's come in. I'm guessing the centre's closed. You're not doing any work? Nothing at all? No one's working?
No, on the contrary. In terms of the business, I think our staff is doing a fantastic work. I think the worst we have gotten to was 70% of delivery. That was day one. Starting day one, we were always close to 85, 90. And then, within a week or so, we got to 95. And shortly in a couple more weeks to follow, we got to about 100 of the pre-war level. So with some KPIs, I think we are already at the pre-war level. With some KPIs, we have already exceeded the pre-February 24 levels. So the staff is doing just fantastic work. Each of our staff understands that unless they are on the front lines, that this is the best way they can support the country. They keep the currency flowing into the economy. Taxes are paid. They spend their salaries, keep the economy spinning. And this also enables them to support our army men.
I have to share a story which at the time the email went around our whole team, which was one of Taras's team members from Visual Aids. There's about 20 of them. They help with presentations. Wrote to one of my team members, "Why aren't you sending any work?" And it was the 5th day of the war. And we wrote back, "Because you're at war." And the person wrote back, 11 of us are in the office. We have no work. Can you send us something because we want to stay busy? And I wrote to Taras and I said, is this correct? We haven't misunderstood. He goes, tell everyone to send work because the staff really want to not be thinking about what's going on outside. And as Taras said, they want to support the economy to drive, keep the wheels moving. I mean, it was so shocking for all of my team members thinking that it was upside down. And then you realize it's logical, isn't it? You just want to do something, yeah? You just keep busy. Taras, final thoughts, please. Can you share with us a bit more?
Sure. And to that quote, Romek, I don't want this to come across as ungrateful, but I think one of the quotes that we have since the first weeks of the war, it was, "Don't send us your compassion, send us some work to do." So that's just, engraved into my head forever. Well, in terms of final thoughts, I'm proud of each Ukrainian and how we're standing up to this unprecedented threat. I don't think that anyone expected Ukraine to withstand the Russian war machine. But after the heroism of the first weeks of the war, when we stood up to Russians almost all alone, the world understood that this is not a lost cause. They all saw that we are fighting for our country, with or without their support. And a fight will be put up regardless of how likely we are to win. I think that and the public opinion pressure has changed the situation radically. And country, Ukraine, is now getting a lot of equipment that it desperately needs. I remain optimistic about us winning the war. It just cannot be otherwise, as the fall of Ukraine, in my eyes, would mean that anyone can do whatever they want without any repercussions. This means chaos. And as much as I don't like banalities, it's a pure fight of good and evil. It's very straightforward in my eyes.
Yeah.
I once again express my gratitude to you and your country for supporting us these dire times. Za wolność naszą i waszą. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you. Questions? Anyone not crying? Yeah. Questions? Taras, that was fantastic, my friend. That's exactly what I wanted you to share with us, is the feeling of what it's like being there. Thank you so much.
Not at all, Tomek. That's as I said, the least I can do as gratitude to all the support that you guys are showing us. That's unbelievable. A friend in need is a friend indeed, as they say, and I think this is just obvious. So thanks so much.
Thank you from all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, mate.
So we're not finished actually with this topic, because now we want to look at what we as an industry may be able to do in a structured way. You know, from the very first days, I mean, we had discussions amongst us, especially I think in terms of office space. You know, we've been working from home for 2 years, and so we all felt that we had office space, and we were looking at ways to repurpose office space. Before we head into a discussion, we have another short film that we'd like to show, which was filmed at the Bonarka Center. So if we could show that film, please.
They say one picture is worth 1,000 words. This is why we decided to take you to one of the temporary reception points here in Kraków, one of many. This particular one is organized by Bonarka for Business in cooperation with the companies here in this building, the tenants. They decided together to transform one of the conference centers in this building and adapt whatever was needed for the purposes of refugees staying here. And ever since March, between 5 to 30 refugees have been staying here and spending time in the city center as well, of course, during the day. There are volunteers involved and businesses supporting the process so that people can feel safe and looked after. We have decided to show you some of those spaces, as well as talk to the people who spend time in this space. Trust me, it's not easy to visit a place like that when you hear stories of people traveling for 5 days to reach Kraków from eastern Ukraine, as is the case with Svetlana, with Sveta. Now she's here working for Wolno Nam, a foundation, looking after this particular center and the needs of the refugees here in Kraków. Svetlana, jesteśmy przed specjalnym punktem dla uchodźców z Ukrainy, przed Bonarka for Business. Czym się tutaj zajmujesz? Powiedz nam.
То я тут займуюся волонтеріушем, волонтерятом.
Jesteś wolontariuszką, czy pracujesz w fundacji?
Я волонтерюшка, але mnie zatrudnili як працівника, щоб завжди хтось був на зміні і як тлумача. Bo ja trochę mówię po polsku.
A skąd pochodzisz i kiedy przyjechałaś do Polski?
Ja z Ukrainy, przyjechałam z Mikołajowa.
To jest koło Chersonia,
prawda? Tak, 60 km od Chersona. Tak. My trzymamy zaraz, nasze miasto trzyma rosyjskie wojsko, żeby oni nie szli dalej na Odessę.
Przyjechałaś sama?
Sama z 2 dziećmi i psem. Tak, sama jechałam. Bardzo bojałam się.
Jak się teraz czujesz dzisiaj tutaj w Krakowie?
Jak u domu. Na pierwszy miesiąc w takim szoku, dlatego ja rozumiem wszystkich uchodźców, co oni відчуваją, kiedy przyjeżdża na pierwszej chwili. Potem ja znalazłam szkołę dla dzieci, w sobie zrobiłam badania i czipirowanie.
Czyli dzieci są w szkole teraz?
Tak, w szkole. 2 miesiące już chodzą do szkoły, bardzo zadowoleni z tych szkół i nauczycieli. My bardzo zadowoleni wszystkimi Polakami. Oni bardzo dobrzy ludzie.
Svetlana.
Jak ja mówię, to więcej tak. I ja za 3 tygodnie po pobytu już w Polsce zrozumiałam, że ja mam wolne ręce, dlatego ja przyszła do pracy.
Jak myślisz sobie o ostatnich 3 miesiącach uchodźców, naszych gości tutaj w Krakowie, to co jeszcze można by zrobić dla tych ludzi, którzy przyjeżdżają do Krakowa?
Ja myślę, że Polacy zrobili tak więcej, że ludzie znajdują się w szoku, że tak ich przyjmują tu. My mamy taką rodzinę, która mieszkała w przyjutach innych i powiedzieli nam, że тут najlepiej. i to дуже przyjemno. Ja даже nie wiem, co mogę zrobić jeszcze więcej. I tak, dużo ciepła, dużo lubowi, miłości po polsku, dużo rzeczy, jakie potrzebne tym ludziom. Wszystko super. Wszystkim dziękujemy za to.
Swietlana, to my dziękujemy, że zgodziłaś się z nami porozmawiać i życzymy Ci dużo zdrowia i całej Twojej rodzinie.
Dziękuję.
I wszystkiego dobrego. Grażyna, first of all, thank you for agreeing to talk to us on this short notice, I would say. It's fair to say, I suppose.
Yeah, it was short, but I just decided to agree to speak to you because I find it important to tell you what's going on here and how we are doing.
And we couldn't agree with you more on this one. Tell me, what is it you do here at Bonarka for Business, temporary reception point for Ukrainian refugees?
Well, I'm a volunteer. I volunteered 2 months ago when Wolno Nam Foundation was looking for some volunteers to help here. And I work at the reception Sometimes I take out the rubbish, sometimes I change the sheets on beds when it's necessary. If some cleaning is necessary, I can do it as well. I try to find a place for a person who needs a place to live, to stay. Well, if someone needs a job, well, I try to look for it, but it's a very hard thing to do. But so we do all kinds of things here, whatever is necessary.
Whatever the priorities are. And how often do you come here in a week?
3 times, 4 times a week. Well, I have a job and I can come for 3-4 hours in the morning and at night usually.
When you look at companies who perhaps want to help, want to become involved, but do not necessarily know how to go about it, when you think about the businesses that could support the process, what would be your recommendations, how to go about it?
Well, we definitely need more volunteers to come and help us here.
So encourage employees to be volunteers.
Definitely
that's
so.
one thing.
Definitely so. This is what companies can do, and I think that people need some encouragement. So this should be provided to people. They should be encouraged, and we also need things like things for everyday existence.
Thank you very much, Grażyna. It's been a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Мне несколько слов. Хорошо, я из Украины. Я вынужденная переселенка и вынуждена была просить помощи у государства Польши. Почему именно Польша? Потому что я знаю, что именно Польша к Украине относится очень хорошо, искренне и откровенно. И дает, необыкновенную помощь. У нас идет война, у нас горе. Я слежу за событиями. Я знаю, что вчера президент Польши Анджей Дуда нанес визит в нашу страну. Не просто так. Он еще раз показал и доказал свои дружеские и откровенные, искренние отношения по отношению к Украине.
Okay, so we had discussions, so congratulations to everyone that's involved in that from Bonarka. I mean, really, hats off to all of you. Those discussions we've had about the use of space and the temporary shelter is fantastic, of course. But as the discussions have evolved and we've looked at a kind of sustainable model going forward, John, I wanted to turn to you at this point, right? Because this is really an idea, I think, which you've been involved in those conversations, and I think you and your team have kind of absorbed what was said, and I think have come up with a concept which, it works for you, but I honestly think that it works across the industry. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about the idea for what we're calling the education hub?
Sure. I work for Aon. And so through Aspire, we've been discussing what could be sustainable structural solutions, because obviously we're 3 months into the situation, and it's going to be an ongoing situation, unfortunately. So we've been looking at And as Łukasz has shown in his videos earlier, there's hundreds of thousands of refugees that have come to the country, and about half of them are children. And so we've had this displacement of so many women and children from the normal functioning attributes of living. And one of the key things that's missing for them or has been disrupted is education.
Mm-hmm.
So we have kids who perhaps are, some kids have enrolled into the Polish school system, but that can also be challenging because of language situations. But also there are kids who are dialing in online to like a central reservoir of education streaming from the Ukrainian Ministry of Education. So we were talking through Aspire, and we're partnering with a charity, the Ignatium Fundacja, looking at trying to develop a framework whereby children, and in particular teenagers, can come to a safe space and attend their classes as if they could at home.
Mm-hmm.
So in our case in Aon, we have some quite nice facilities for training, which obviously until COVID we'll be using quite a lot for our international training. So we're making available some of our space in the training facility for the foundation to bring children into our space with teachers, with volunteers, where the kids can come in, they can access the educational modules with good Wi-Fi. And in addition to that, then we'll also organise some, let's call it extracurricular type activities, maybe social skills, languages, maybe some sporting activities, just to give the kids a sense of a normality of their existence in Kraków. And the response in Poland, in Kraków, has been unbelievable, and we can see that. But but many of these refugees are living in maybe difficult environments.
Mm-hmm.
So
can I ask in terms of what are you providing? Because you mentioned the NGO, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
I mean, people that are thinking about, we would like to help, right? But there's a structure here that we're trying to put in place, right? So
sure.
What are there's three things, I think, three main components, right? Which Aon is providing here: space,
yes,
tech,
mm-hmm.
and food. In fact, you're covering the food for the kids to come
absolutely,
in, right?
yeah. So our office space, we make that available. We can leverage our Wi-Fi infrastructure so that the children can access the educational modules in a secure environment and without any interruption to our own networks or our own business pieces. That's all under control. And then we also provide meals for the children as well, because also maybe they're not in a very good environment in terms of nutrition as well at the moment. So we're happy to help there.
Okay, but then the bit that you wouldn't want to do, or at least wouldn't want to be responsible for, I'm assuming, is the kind of educational piece, right? Which is recruiting the kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So the foundation is responsible for the enrollment of the children into the program. And actually, as you know, Andy, there was a session last night in the Ukrainian bookshop in Sovetskiego, where there was probably about 100 people expressed an interest that our kids would participate in the program like that. So that was basically almost by word of mouth that those first 100 people found out about that. So we can see that there's probably quite a large demand that is going to develop in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, right? So I mean, you're the first company that's come forward and kind of said yes. We're talking to another two hubs where we can't quite disclose yet because we're still waiting for permissions to come from lawyers or taxmen. I'm not quite sure what it is. What in your view, if anybody's kind of hesitating, what are the things that potentially are a kind of hold up here?
Yeah. Well, I would say the first thing I would say is that we're going piloting with the foundation over the next month. We're actually starting next week, so we can
Monday, right?
Next Monday, yeah. So we can leverage and share our experiences for any other companies that have an interest in participating in the program as we go forward. What we're going to do is we're going to run the program in like 4-week sprints. The enrollment is organised by the charity. The teachers are provided by the charity, and of course the children are provided by the charity. So we're basically just hosting, and all the operational piece around the delivery of the education, the supervision, the welfare of the participants is taken care of by the charity. So in that sense, it's not like intrusive in terms of our organization. It's just the simple fact that we have office space, we're coming out of the COVID experience, we're not fully utilizing all of our space, so we're thinking, well, this is a good way to use some of that.
Yeah, and you'd kind of encourage others to kind of...
Yeah, I would encourage, because one thing we all have with our 100,000 employees in the city is we have lots of office space, and we're not all fully using it at the moment. So I would encourage anybody who's interested in taking part in the program. We're happy to share our experiences as we progress in the next month, and all are welcome.
Yeah, I mean, you have space for 25 kids, right? I think we're talking to another 2 spaces, that would be 75 kids. But, you know, the demand is just huge, right? So the simple model is one in which a company is providing all of those things. As we can develop a complexity later, I think, whereby, you know, somebody may, for instance, want to provide food but can't provide space. Yeah. Right? Or maybe be able to provide tech but can't provide space or food or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But in terms of kicking it off and getting it started, we're really looking for people to kind of step up and do those, I think, those 3 main components, right? And we ought to say, because we keep saying the charity and the NGO, you know, this is a 500-year-old NGO. It is the Academia Ignatianum, the Jesuit kind of university in Kraków, that's standing behind this as well as us, right? So it's kind of old and new Kraków coming together, I would say, and I think it has legs, and I think it has the potential to have scale, and to really make a difference. And I know there are people sitting in the audience whose companies we are talking to. So I'm just going to say to you guys, kind of press your lawyers or your taxmen, you know, just squeeze them a little bit so that we can move forward, because every day we don't move forward is a lost opportunity. Okay, so thanks, John. Terrific. Look, we've got 2 topics that we're dealing with today. I mean, we're lucky because, in the sense that we're on YouTube. I mean, we can keep going. I do want to come to kind of bring this area to a close. Maybe though a couple of, I mean, Can
I jump in? You asked the question and then John answered it, but I think there's another element. I think central government has done a bit. Local government has done a fantastic job, and Kraków, respect to you guys, brilliant. And I think multinationals are doing more and more. Where I think we as leaders within our community and with our staff, where we need to raise our heads up and go a little bit further is where Poland has shone through, is that the average person has taken someone in their home, fed them, and it's like a mother, then her mum arrives, then 2 kids and a dog. And they're in your house for a month, okay? And that, we have to give massive respect to our staff who are doing that. Massive respect. And so I'll give you I don't want to say I've done it really successfully, but I check every week with anyone who's got a Ukrainian family living with them, checking, is everything okay? Can I help? So far, they haven't wanted any of my help, which says something about me. But that's one thing I think, please don't let go of your individual staff. We've got 100,000 people who work for us. Keep their energy levels up as individuals, not multinationals only, please, okay? I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And Yola, you are...
I just wanted to build on what you were discussing about that sustainable models that we are developing. Yeah. I'd like to, obviously, everything that we're doing is amazing, but I actually think, and I hope this war will come to an end very quickly, but I'm really hoping, and that's what's going through my head, that, like, for example, COVID, has made us different, has brought different ways of working, different demands from our employees. I'd like to think that, anything that we do actually will make us much more embedded can make us, if we use that opportunity of the models that we build, the support that we give in the education hub, the career centers that we run, for example, much more embedded in the Kraków society and beyond. And I hope, and everything that we do and we do as an industry, as a company, we're going to make sure that this is that can be multiplied later on. And I think we are even much more part of and that's something that Aspire has always wanted to be, right? Be embedded within the Kraków community even more. And I think that will give us that leverage. So I just want to, leave us with that thought that whatever we do today that's needed, yes, that's great, but also think about how we could, for example, offer this education hub to, for those who are not in war situation, but others who will need that, or the career advice for those who don't know how to do it. And not just for our industry, but any jobs that are available.
I think that's a really important point, the extent to which it's opening up our own kind of channels of thought
and
as much as anything, of what we can do to and Philippe, you
for me, when I was listening to that, it resonates for me since a while in our industry. Pre-pandemic, pre-war, we talked about leading with empathy, right? It was kind of a new trend in the leadership, and then pandemic started, and then war Ukraine started, and what you're describing for me is nothing else but just the empathy, listening to others, feeling what they feel, supporting, listening to the needs of our employees. I remember very well the first meeting with the 24 of Ukrainian employees at Akamai, and we had all this bunch of ideas. Okay, so we'll provide to them this and that, right? We thought we were ready. We thought we know. And then we asked them, okay, so what do you need? Do you need this, that? And you know what they said? We need time.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they asked for was time. Time so they could organize themselves to what Roman said, right? Time to see how they feel.
Roman told me to tell you his name is Romek.
Romek, yeah. So that was really, really incredible. So I think, leading with empathy, time to our Ukrainian employees, time to their families to organize themselves, time to prepare for the next step. I'm looking at you, Yola, and I'm thinking about Alexander Mann Solutions. You're already preparing because the next step is to the education, so kids could go to school. The next step is to get job, right? So Alexander Mann Solutions, right? Preparing how to write CVs, preparing for the interviews. That's all comes for me with this empathy, ability to listen what's needed, and then executing on those.
Yeah.
And if I may add something here as well, I think it always starts with one simple thing to do, right? So today I had a conversation about one lady, Ukrainian lady, we employed, and we are trying to figure out, what kind of job we could, help lady to grow to. And I think, many times we stop ourselves because we need to have some perfect solution, perfect structure, perfect governance. And, this is what I notice here, in this environment, that it needs to be perfect. Yeah, but I think, as Yola mentioned, it needs to be embedded, right? So you need to do it, right? You see something, you do it, and you just move on. Because we don't know how to manage those things. And then, the new world will come, and as you will become more agile, making this decision on the fly, and maybe, coming back if something is not perfect, then try something else. This is how, we will help going forward, right? So don't try to be perfect, just do it, yeah?
Brilliant. I have to say, we're kind of, because we're kind of running over on this particular topic, I feel like we could go on. But you've actually kind of set us up, I think, extremely well for our next topic, which is the future of GBS. And so thank you very much for that discussion. I mean, we really need to thank Taras. Absolutely. It's not the first time I've spoken to Taras, or you've spoken to Taras, and it's incredibly emotional, isn't it? Let's move to the future of GBS. To do that as well, we've shot a short film. So let's play that film, and when we come back, I'll be handing the floor to Christian, my friend on the right there. So let's play the film, please.
We feel that there is something different. There is a change. It seems to be that there are very good times for the GBS because the companies understand and believe in the GBS model. We saw it in the many of the projects with the GBS is growing, new are appearing, a lot of new processes.
You had a couple of intuitions based on what was happening and on your observations. So what are the key 2-3 findings from the report?
One of the findings is that we see that the expectations of the GBS is being closer to the business. First, just be expected to do more business-related functions, or like marketing, production planning, or even legal services for the real business processes. Second, that GBS are supposed to reporting the end-to-end KPIs, even they are not performing whole of the process, but the reporting is there, meaning that they are more powerful. And third one, that's expectation that GBSs are full of the data and how this data can be used in the business decision support. Everyone have a lot of intuition, but here it's very important to confirm the intuition by the data. In this report, we believe we confirm our assumptions that the GBS sector is growing and moving to this more comprehensive way. What we see, there are a lot of pioneers who are already there, but what is very important and could be very valuable for the report, for the GBSs, for the centers who are not already there, that they can confirm and show what is the direction and to whom they could follow.
When you look at the dynamics of the industry and GBS is in Kraków, this has been rather impressive, it's fair to say, I suppose.
Yeah.
There are huge variables now, like the war in Ukraine, the pandemic in the past 2 years. So if you look ahead for the next 3 to 5 years, what is your first impression?
It's going to be overwhelmingly successful. But I'm hoping that GBSs will do things differently than corporations used to do in their mother organizations, in their headquarters. Again, no one way. Just do it quicker, deliver faster, in less corporate way.
So what you're essentially saying between the lines is the more flexibility and the more tailored your understanding
more
of...
agile.
More agile.
Quicker means also without the whole corporate entourage and long decision making. You know what we do sometimes? We sometimes don't ask for permission, right? We do something, we do the project, and then we choose to say sorry afterwards. And then the result is very often pretty amazing.
So it would be fair to say that it's more of a startup culture in a way, isn't it?
If you can create such, that's great. It's all about the leadership. I'm enjoying great leadership here at Amway, both in terms of my senior leaders in the corporation that give us a lot of freedom and trust, and also the leadership that I have here in our Krakow center, both mine and those that are just co-located.
Wojtek, why are we here at Amway in the context of the key findings of the adaptive report, the future of GBSs?
Well, I hope that the reason for the visit in here is that we might be a good example of a center that is a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of maturity in some areas. I mean, there is probably no one center that is ahead of the curve of everyone in every aspect. But I think we do have a couple of areas like finance, or like the breadth of our services to our corporation, that makes us a little bit further ahead, compared to the median of maturity. This future was just not possible to predict, that Krakow will service the whole west world of Amway and fully end-to-end. I mean, end-to-end is it's a pretty fluffy word because everybody's using that, but I didn't see a lot of places where it's really done, right? In here it is. If you would ask me, there are different ways of GBSs to be more mature. Some will choose one way or one function, some will choose geographic scope, some will choose going deeper into analytics, into process mining, data mining, and so on. Some will choose value-added aspect of being a GBS. There's a lot of ways you see GBSs expanding. Amway GBS is, I think, leading the bunch in maturity of finance, where all the finance is already done by GBS. There is no finance client left in the market, so we have chosen to move the whole function into GBS. Not at once. It took us a couple of iterations of our transformations, but that was brilliant. In terms of maturity for the market, well, the best example for me is that the market, so my business, is asking me to support when they are doing transformation. And that is the recent case of transformation. They come here because they see some expertise is here rather than anywhere else at the corporation. And the third thing is, well, there are functions that just choose this location as a talent pool for their market functions. So for sales support or for marketing, for many, many years they've been here co-locating their staff between other locations and GBS.
In my role at the firm, I'm a US-based partner that is the head of Global Business Services Advisory for the firm. We're here actually to help a client open a center in Krakow. We look at the DNA in the ecosystem in Krakow as being one of the most attractive things from both a talent and a cost standpoint.
So that in itself is good news because the market continues to be growing despite the massive obstacles.
That's right. I'd say COVID obviously has had some obstacles, and obviously the crisis going on, but this is still where people desire to go. And if you look at the talent versus the cost, as I mentioned, it's probably the best place in Europe to be.
If we were to talk about the changes, the shifts in the business models of the past 2 years, what would be your key observations? Because of, well, some of those things were very difficult to predict, like the shift from on-site to online and the current preferences of employees. What are your key observations about the past 2 years?
Certainly no one could have ever predicted this, but from a business perspective, and particularly GBS, I think it's actually elevated its role in the organization. I think right now, because the DNA of GBS is to centralize and standardize, they were more agile. It's now reached the C-suite, where you have a CEO, a COO, a CFO saying, why exactly are we able to close the books? Why are we able to pay the bills? What's going on? Because GBS was looked at as a transactional factory. And now you have those center leads suggesting, well, we are doing it and we're meeting those same quality standards, but we're doing it for less money. And at that point, you know, it is now on the top list of all the CEOs because they've now looked at GBS as a strategic asset versus a transactional factory.
The past 2 years have clearly accelerating a variety of learning processes at GBSs and not only. What about the next 2 years? What would be your key predictions for the future?
Given that the C-suite has recognized, you know, GBS as a viable business partner, I think you'll see expanded scope. That can be front office areas like sales admin, it could be, you know, mid office areas like supply chain or customer service. And even in the traditional back office areas, I think from a reporting standpoint, it exists throughout every function. You're going to start to see those types of skills be in GBS because the business is more comfortable.
Okay, Christian, it's with you, my friend.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. And indeed, that was a good break, like kind of the advert, what we should look at, what we should think of. If I can ask for the presentation that we have in the background, that would be great. And indeed, the next half an hour or so, we are to look at the report of the future, actually at your responses about the future of the GBS, as actually with collaboration with Andrew and Aspire, we have rolled it out a couple of months back, actually towards your organizations also here in Krakow. And there was also one rule set by Andrew that at least half of the answers must be from Aspire members. So, and indeed, this is roughly what happened here. But first of all, I count actually on your questions, and I do have particular questions to our audience and to our panelists over here, so that would be addressed over the course of the slides so that you don't feel bored that much. I hope you will actually recognize, though, the key of the messages from your own garden. First of all, then, still, why the report? I think we heard here and there that is the good momentum now from a couple of reasons. One reason is obviously we are after the COVID disease and 2 years of pandemic, and many companies start to look back or to look at this moment at the reflection whether they have not missed that 2 years or what happened there. Might be actually 3 different scenarios. One was really the ban for any kind of investments, any kind of transformations that could happen along not even shorter than those 2 years, and only now the couple of budgets are being released. On the other side might be companies who were not missing a momentum and were immediately after the first lockdown of 3-4 months started to look at acceleration. And I personally do know the centers that were 100% started up in pandemic times. So actually none of their employees was really hired differently than virtually. But the second reason why the report now actually is the maturity that we all recognize we have. The sector, well, Romek has longer experience, but the sector in Poland is probably somehow 20 years mature in terms of first centers that were operating like shared services. So that is obviously the third reason why it's a good moment to ask. So what now? You would see already on the first slide that we have migrated a lot and concentrated a lot of transactional stuff deeper and or not, but still, what's the next? And finally, the third element is do we have enough capabilities to manage that what we plan or that what we think could be the good idea to explore. And especially here in Krakow, which is full of talent for many years, but also full of talent competition. And I do not want to focus, or we didn't focus in the report as well on the competition, but more probably it's worth the discussion. Do we do everything what is possible to grow our capabilities as a sector, meaning to grow our talent base in the areas we foresee as the ones critical for the future, as the ones on the radar screen. Then first snapshot of the information. What I mentioned, we have interviewed, and in many cases these were the physical interviews or as well as the questionnaires. Roughly 100 or nearly 100 centers, with vast majority being center heads or center directors responding. It might bring only the one side picture that these are the plans foreseen by the centers. On the other hand, one of the responses were that how close you are to your leadership, to your CX level. And I can only confirm what the colleagues from PwC are saying. This is very much the common picture. And what you can see here also that the report was done among actually quite well mix of the centers. So small, mid-size, big, also with portion of BPO here, but also very big. Which brings, as I said, much similarities in the answers, or much median in the answers, we may say. Now, we want to touch on 4 dimensions. One is the scope and the capabilities that we have around looking at the processes and at the roles that we have in the centers. Second would be more looking at the governance, how strong we are and how much we predict we would be in terms of taking the role in this, not maybe only transactional, operational, but certainly tactical function of your organizations. Third, talent. What do we foresee as a key challenges here? And the final one, technology, which actually might support the remaining 3 or the first 3, but might be also considered as a separate dimension. And during the discussion, not only I will ask the panelists for their views, but also look a little bit also on the IT world, asking directly the questions to Filip and probably Przemek, to give us more like similar reflection from the market that I believe, at least personally, that is a little bit further ahead, at least in terms of talent challenge or talent competition. Now, first snapshot of data. So what are we doing in our centers? Nice picture. We are in many cases having the first key takeaway is that we have multi-domain centers or multi-process centers. Almost everyone is doing finance. Almost everyone is doing or planning to do HR, and the same with IT. You can see 60% plus the yellow boxes signaling what we are planning to do in our year to 3 years time. We are also heavily busy with procurement. So those are the 3-4 key areas of our scope coverage as a centers, and also where it's not, it's visible that it's planned to be. One may question, obviously, how deep we have that scope centralized, and here the Wojtek from Amway said, and which we can confirm us also supported that process a lot, that they have migrated everything, meaning no single chief of accountant left, no single retained organization, no single finance manager left in the countries. All the domain function moved as one FNA. So that might be the further question, but what is still important to mention is those plans. So how much is planned, how much is ahead, or which are the transactional or also domain areas that are the most on the radar screen or the most on our management agendas. And what is visible here is that 20 or nearly 20% of our centers, even that they do have, some of them do have that scope, still want to explore supply chain, want to explore logistics, further explore procurement or control and compliance. These are not easy processes, and probably also from the later on talent perspective discussion, not easy profiles to find, at least not by now, and indeed Kraków should be the leader also over here in actually preparation for such a growth. And the second slide before the first questions to the audience is purely about what are the more high-end, what else do we do, what are the more high-end, or some may say a little bit tactical roles that we manage to onboard in our centers, sometimes implementation, sometimes project management, but we can see also here COE roles or data analytics, and indeed data analytics and knowledge management related processes are still the ones that are the most to explore. We are not here yet at the 90 to 100% coverage, but you can see that for the reporting and for the transition management, 70% plus of our centers do have those resources onboarded and do have those capabilities on board. But still then this 30 or 40%, given the scale of GBS sector, is huge number of people that we would need to accommodate that. And I want to start now with the questions, maybe first to Gabriela and Przemek, about do you see that kind of the roles visible in your centers? Or what type of this indeed high-end value generating roles you are expanding today and you plan to expand tomorrow, if you can reveal that?
Shall I go first?
Yes.
So, I need to reflect on what Wojtek was saying. Overwhelming positive? Is that what he said about the future of Kraków? So I feel very much connected with that one. And to give you a little bit of the story, my personal story to share, we are on the market for years, so not so long as other centers as well. And, we started, and Romek knows, right, because we were cooperating together, we were setting up the center. We started with like a very typical European scope, yeah? And that was, so they told me, predicted that Gabriela will be able to move towards EMEA, maybe later on 5 years. Guess what? After 2 years, before COVID started, we already had plans to expand the center. Yeah, because originally we were going to be just 400 people, and now we are 540, and we added additional scope to the centers that nobody believed it's going to be possible. And that connects us to the talent pool, which we will be able to talk a little bit later on. And by the way, Przemek and I, we had that conversation because we had one function that no other centers have. For example, we have our own bank and we have our in-house function that is managing globally. So not just European, not just EMEA, we go beyond to global capabilities already. I like the analogy about, there are different types of maturity that you can look at. And the one I would like to talk about, so in terms of expansion of the different services, I pretty much follow supply chain. It's a big topic, supply chain among all centers, right? I think, that's something that, people here would be nodding. But I would like to share with you that this maturity, when we moved from transactional, what everybody expected from us, that was the conversation I had with our regional CFO who told me, okay, Gabriela, so you perform very well. So you are the business already. Yeah, so you are my business partner, you are the business. So think like business. And I said, okay. So we started to think about what other value-added activities that we can bring. And here I am, very proud of my team. 2nd year in a row, we won Global CFO Award to drive free cash flow initiatives, for the region. And it was very well correctly mentioned that we sit on thousands of data with advanced analytics, but also with the experience that our people build extremely fast. Since the moment we started up the center, we were able to come with other initiatives. And I'm not looking at productivity only, yeah, which is obvious. Yeah, that's something that we need to challenge ourselves all the time, but it's different value creation activities. Yeah, how to support different cost-saving driver. And I have this big ask from the president of the region, Gabriela, you need to be able to fund your organization one day. So to drive cost savings, to be able to fund your organization. And I think that's where we sit now together. The performance is excellent, because this is something that people here, they have in their blood to perform very well. I am very impressed about the talent on the market. But then, they always go and think beyond. So this value creation was one of the things which, help us to become more business partner rather than just transactional center performing the job.
Przemek?
Okay, yeah. Our story actually is slightly different. We are a new center on the market. We started literally a year ago. We are now 160 people. We are growing. And what is happening with us is exactly illustrating the trend on the market. We start to deliver the plans. We expand the office. We start the expansion. So we start to deliver the plans that I initially foreseen to kick off in 2-3 years' time. So it's all accelerating permanently. And why it happened actually, why we see actually from your report also those new functions and capabilities that are in the aspirations of the companies. It didn't happen accidentally, because in the history of business services industry in Krakow over the last 15 years, our people were growing together with the industry. We say usually, global process owners roles that we have in the organizations. To be the global process owners is not to be the subject matter expert. You need to have the reputation, seniority to drive the change, to inspire people globally. You cannot think small as a global process owner. And you need to have people actually that are capable to execute this role in this complex business environment. So I think the maturity of the market and the industry in Krakow these days is at this stage that is allowing us to grow and to accelerate. So I can only confirm the conclusions that are coming from your report, but I can say that it will accelerate. Our challenge will be actually, on the other hand, how to manage this fast growth actually, to be able to deliver the promises to the market, and how to actually increase the business acumen of our people, how to bring them closer to this business that, of course, we work in the remote work environment also with our colleagues abroad. We do not travel as much as we traveled before COVID. So it's bringing this new way of working, it's bringing additional challenges. But still, I believe it will only accelerate. And with the capabilities and talents we're able to demonstrate in Krakow over the last years, business now gained the trust we can deliver. And this trust is actually it's not accidental. It started with the great, excellent delivery from our business services industry in Krakow. And over those years of positive experiences, the proximity, being a partner, the business gained the trust that is now enabling us to grow, and is triggering the accelerated growth that will happen certainly in Krakow over the next 2-3 years.
Don't you have a thought that we are accelerating actually every year? Or there might be small elements like first year of COVID that was like a reflection moment or question mark, but still the result is similar.
Because let's say if you asked me 10 years ago, when you asked an average CFO about the outsourcing services, they would say, okay, it's a kind of a steel ball I have to drag, it's attached to my leg and I have to drag it, and actually it's not helping me at all. Now, actually, business services, GBS, is like a supercharger to the business with the data we have, with the capabilities, with the analytics. With the robotics we can actually apply both in reporting and data analytics. We are really like a supercharger to the business, that we can be a solution, not a problem. That's why it is accelerating.
Okay, so we moved from those transactional more to high end to the value creation roles, and you say we might be ready for really tactical roles on the organization management level or leadership level. Given the maturity and the space. I want to a bit stop here and ask Philip about the IT perspective of IT market, where we believe, at least myself, that you are a bit further in the development from the perspective of the speed and also of the challenges that you have. Wasn't that the same, that you were building the trust over the first tasks? Then you could outsource it further, but now you are building trust based on the different things. And where did that go as the result?
No, I think you're right. In terms of speed acceleration, it is possible that in IT environment it happens slightly faster. But the mechanism and the trend, I would say, is exactly the same as mentioned before, which starts with, of course, complete transformation, expectations, plan versus the reality. And we could tell stories about, like in Akamai Technologies case, the office which was supposed to be a small office for European operations based on the language talent. And guess what? 10 years after, the 30% of the office is the most advanced engineering work, the most demand for engineering, for security, profile demands that probably we never thought the naming even before about. So yes, it happens. I think it starts with the attitude, skill set, ability to learn, to transform fast, which our organizations within the multifunctional environment brings to the table. As a result, we got in your sector, in IT sector, the same. I think we got more empowerment, which is great because that's what the IT people want. They want to be empowered to innovate, to put in place and see the big picture and the results. But there is some blocker at some point, I think, because how much you can be empowered, even if you get the empowerment, if you don't understand the business. So the connection with the business comes into play in the same way for IT. So I think this is where we started to get, and we see that happening, product development ownership, profiles to manage holistically the product design. We didn't have that before. Suddenly, Krakow, which was supposed to be not a hub to do the business, comparing to Warsaw or any other European capital cities, guess what? We are having enormous demand, pre-pandemic, of course, for the customers' visit. Why? Because actually they want to come and visit the teams who are doing the real work, who are doing the innovation and so on. So I think this value chain, the mechanism was exactly the same. And now seeing the scope of the roles we are looking for, honestly, I cannot think about any limit. Probably the sky is again the limit. Of course, there is a question how fast we can deliver on-demand profiles, skill set, maturity, leadership, including the IT, right? This has always been a challenge. And the more I think about it, and I'm wondering, okay, but is there any place where you could have that, all of that, like that quickly? Probably not, right? So that makes me think, going back to the beginning, maybe actually it's about self-development, self-ability to transform, learn. And that's an open question, how capable we will be to capture after the growth, after the demand, especially not only, but in IT, it's moving so rapidly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and probably if we look back to the report, it is visible that the majority of the centers are building their capabilities based on the capabilities existing already on the market. So, being honest, hiring from others, but also to expand. Couple of 10 years back, we could say, yeah, demography would help us because it was also a lot about the transactional processes and only the volumes or number of FTEs were the challenges. Nowadays, as we could see, we are talking a lot about the individual roles or specific roles or domain specific roles that are being a challenge. Now, you talked about the empowerment, that we want to be empowered, and one of the points is actually addressed here on the report. If we can come back to it again. Yes, with the governance model. So, are we ready? And obviously, the questions asked to the centers was, do we have your global process owners within the structures of the GBS, or even more? We selected the second one, based in your centers, not necessarily only in Krakow, but actually based or co-located with delivery. And what we could see here, only 30% on average is declaring that they have some or one or few, but more than actually everyone, remaining 47, 42, 46% do want to install them in the centers. Whether that's a plan or that's a real thing that we are discussing with our parent company leadership, that's probably another story. But the question is, are we really ready? Do we have the right understanding? What does it mean to have the GPO function in the GBS? Romek, you may want to start this time.
As you were talking, I did a quick note. I knew he was going to ask me that question. I call it the GPO conundrum. I think when you look at GBS, for me, the driving success factor of true GBS is a global process owner. Okay? Now, every center, every GBS leader around the world will tell you we're doing it. I'd say 95% of them are not. And that's why I think I'll explain the conundrum here is, Wojtek said it, end-to-end globally, and then he explained how he's done it so successfully for finance in EMEA. Well, so that's not end-to-end because it's finance, and it wasn't globally because it was EMEA. And no, not for him, he's actually done this fantastic job in their center, and they have global process owners doing, I would say, 80% of it, but not 100. They've gone further than others. So my first problem is, it's never really end-to-end because, unfortunately, everyone still gets trapped in their box of finance, procurement, HR, and breaking that barrier down is proving to be very difficult. The other one area I look at, another conundrum, is the skill set to be a GPO, Christian. If you actually think of the skills you need, they don't exist, or there's 10 of them in the world. 3 of them are here. I won't tell you who they are. You have to know and understand the existing processes of the business you're in and the politics of the business itself. You need to know that. And simultaneously, you need to know best-in-class processes. So how can you work somewhere for 10 years, know everybody, know the processes, know what's broken, and simultaneously know what everyone else is doing around the world? Kind of a conundrum. And then the other one I always see is when you think about implementation, next conundrum is to make big change happen, you need to be near the bosses, which is the headquarters. But to make big change and implement it, you need to be down on the ground where the process is actually being performed, which means you're in GBS in a hub somewhere. So are you in HQ or in a hub? I don't know. And I think that's why, for me, the global process ownership isn't really taking off, or it is, but it's going very slowly. And I understand why. I think everyone thought you could do it in a year and it's done. I think it's a 5-year journey. I think we're at the beginning of the 5-year journey. And for me, that's the governance model piece, which is not broken, but it definitely isn't fixed.
Or maybe that should be simply considered as a function, not as an individual that is at the same moment there and here, meaning indeed working as a next to the decision makers or playing the change manager or change leader role in that end, and the second portion of that function should be placed where it should be, basically, in the organization that can execute that. And I saw also a lot of organizations who have that function already really considered as 100 people plus, rather than one single individual for the function, which is maybe a bit too much, but it depends indeed on the number of the change initiatives, as basically what we think all agree, that you don't need that much global process owner if you don't want to change your process or landscape, because this is the role that has been made actually to make changes, no matter whether we say this is first standardization, second transformation, third automation, or whomever is where. Right. Anybody wants to add on here?
One more thing from me, because I see a couple of colleagues in the audience I know very well for years, and how we all started in business services industry. We come from manufacturing. With the first wave of direct investment, at a given moment we were working for the site, procurement leader for a site I see here, that then wanted to evolve to multi-site, to the region, and then move to business industry to service the whole markets, brand, geographical area, or taking care now of the whole procurement functions for the group. And now, with the global disruption of the supply chains, companies are rethinking the manufacturing footprint. So very probably we can say that a lot of these direct investments may come to our region, to Eastern Europe. And then it will create a second, I would say, big wave of talent that will, at a given moment, want to grow above the one side that they are responsible for in certain functions. And that may contribute really to diversity of different talents with the industrial background. They have lean manufacturing culture in their DNA. They have different skills that will only strengthen the capabilities in our industry.
That's the typical question, by the way, we receive from the companies who are still starting the journey. And once they hear about the GPO, the question is very concrete. So whom I should select? GBS leader from somewhere, or my own 20 years experience P2P leader there? And there is not a simple answer, obviously. Okay, I think we move on to the talent piece, because where it comes from the empowerment, it ends with ability to deliver. And here a couple of interesting points. First, about the HR policies that you have implemented or explored recently more and more. Meaning, obviously, it is a bit like post-COVID question, but with the interesting thought, we did everything, most probably, what we thought we could do. Online training, online hiring, virtual onboarding, remote work, hybrid model. I think we also ask you as participants in this, what is your current and future state on the work from home, or whether it's remote or on-site, and obviously still landing here 50-50, a bit more on-site for the future. But my favorite one, we want to implement hybrid model. We want to implement this mix but we are still not so good in allowing ourselves to work from anywhere. And Taras was saying, give me more work. I am confronted with a lot of clients for whom we work that we cannot send our employee, or we cannot serve it out of the Ukraine, right? But that's probably a different example. The only example here, if you allow a hybrid model, I know Romek is a big fan of being in the office, but whether there is a really difference of being in the office 2 days a week and 7-8 days a month in a kind of the longer period routes, that's probably the question to be asked. Przemek, I think you want.
I'm a great fan of being in the office as well, because I believe in people. And in my view, innovation and problem solving is coming only from the interaction between people. I can't appreciate how fast, how much I can learn from the others being side by side with them in the office. When I compare to the situation, I see the face on the screen from this time to this time as it is scheduled in the Outlook. So it's a completely different level of interaction and learning, collective learning, and then progress and transformation. So I'm a great fan of working from the office with the others.
Mm-hmm.
I'm great fun. I'd like to think that I am someone who is great fan of people and being amongst them. But I think there is also a consideration of what kind of employees we're going to have, and we've got to respond to. We talked about empathy and listening, and I think we will have to be tuned into that, because someone just introduced me to this idea that because of pandemic, we potentially have people who had never been in the office. They were hired to the first job, not experiencing being in the office. So we've got to make sure that we kind of navigate those models in the right way. I do think there will be still the same barriers that we've experienced, in terms of ability to give work to different locations. Although I think, we service quite a lot of clients from financial services, and they usually would never even enjoy the thought of, having a remote work, and that's changed after pandemic. But I think it's something that we've got to watch, because I agree we will lose the continuous improvement mindset, instant learning from interaction, but we might lose out on the retention of talent, because that's what we're going to be competing on. I think that list, probably a few years back, we were talking about a benefit list. Mm-hmm. Where we competed against. This is where we're going to be competing now, of who will be faster to listen better to the environment and people that we are hiring, and how we're going to respond it. So I think, I think we will not have answers now. It's going to be another thing that's going to be, something that we're going to be tuning into. Both because of clients, because of the talent that we've got, and also because of our organization having different model and mindset.
I'm going to challenge you, Yola, because I disagree with what you said. I think we, as the leaders of our business and then ultimately the industry, we have to be very, very careful about this view and approach of empathy and listening to our employees, of course, but you also have to realise they're all 30 years younger than you, of which 30% of them haven't done a day in the office. So you're going to ask them, would you like to come and work in the office with the team? And they go, I haven't even seen my team. You're asking the wrong person the wrong question. And we've done surveys. I've done a survey where I got 80% of people saying they don't want to come back at all. Mm-hmm. And then 2 weeks later, funnily enough, the sun was not shining and it was raining. And suddenly you get the exact reverse number. The same people saying, I do want to go back to the office. So we've got to be very careful here. Surveys can be dangerous, and asking everyone everything. You can't just do that and expect the answer to be the right answer.
I didn't use the word survey, though.
No, I didn't, but you said empathy and asking.
I did, because leadership is about empathy and listening. And I think I'm not saying we're going to be asking them. I'm saying we have to tune into what's going to work. And if this changed from one day to another, that's something that we need to learn from. And I do really believe that, if we force something, especially on current generations, we're going to have a big kind of escape. But hey, it's good to have different opinions as well.
One thing remains, which is data, and the data shows that actually 17% today, but plus 24% that are planning to. So watch out, in year to 2 years now, you may or we may end up with at least 40% of our colleagues or our sector companies with that procedures implemented, and then most probably it will be a significant benefit for the employees. And I'm looking again into Philip, because I can already see these programmers who moved at the beginning of pandemic 60 kilometers out of Krakow to have a more decent environment to live. And now the new companies trying to hiring them, calling and saying, hey, we have an on-site work for you.
Yeah, that's exactly what they did. And they enjoy doing that. And they plan to continue doing that. No matter how much we would push. I think after 2 years of pandemic, the times changed, the attitude changed. We won't be back to where we were. We are in people business everywhere, in every industry, but in IT, with such a high demand for the skill set, it was always market driven by the employee, and now it's even more, I would say. So I can speak on behalf of Akamai. We are on this side of the companies which decided not to ask employees to come to the office. They come by the choice. So every employee could choose between 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 days to come to the office. Are we concerned about ability to collaborate? Are we concerned about sense of belonging? How innovative we will be in this new environment? Of course, we are as concerned as every single company who ask employees or will ask employees to come back to the office 1, 2, or 3 days per week. But in our case, we'll try to take it from the other perspective. Let's follow employees' choice. Let's see what it brings us, and let's find the ways to achieve innovation, collaboration, sense of belonging, everything which is needed for us. I remember very well those discussions. Initially with the pandemic, we thought, okay, productivity will drop. Then we thought collaboration will drop. And then guess what? We are finding ways. We are humans. We always find a way. We have this ability to readapt. So I think we need to keep the ability to readapt. If one day it will mean going back to the office, why not, right? But let's see. So I think we are among the companies which wants to give it a try, to follow the employees' preferences and find a way how to do things that we are doing slightly differently. And honestly, I'm as excited. We will still meet in the office from time to time. I'm super excited about meeting employees in the office. I'm super excited meeting them also outside of the office, right? We always thought, office is where those things happen. I'm not sure, right? Honestly, maybe it's even better quality time to spend some time after work or during work outside of the office doing some meaningful things, no matter if it's collaboration, charity, giving back, projects, sustainability. I think we can achieve the same results in different ways.
In the meantime, I switched the slides. We have to gradually speed up. I switched the slides into how do you retain, or how do we retain? And it's simple statistics, but showing that we all implemented what we believed in. We all implemented well-being, remote. We all implemented flexible working hours. By the way, being close to the business, flexible working hours, but still many centers working 9 to 5 and then closing, unless they are global servicing. But 75% of us implemented also financial support for education. Still, one significant element that is considered as the next step is job rotation outside of the GBS, which is well known. I do recognize it from 10 years back. I don't necessarily recognize it by now once we want to migrate everything to GBS. So there's not much left, at least in our plans. But that's somehow what we recognize as a still not explored element, and probably still being the fastest developing on the market in the coming year or two. Technology, the last piece, which basically, from one end, elements that we consider as GBS ourselves as being high on the technology side, which is case management, which is single instance ERP, or some social networking tools, by the way, given the chats. And where we consider ourselves very low is basically typical technology, artificial intelligence, language neutralization, or process mining. And final question, top 3 technologies your companies or our companies will focus on, still although ranked high, case management, softwares like ServiceNow, ticketing everything actually, and having a decent reporting machine. Team engagement, well, basically not many people know what they are talking about, but we got a feeling that this is the future. And this is my question basically, can anybody bring us closer a little bit to that?
Well, I can talk about team engagement tools, but I think, it really, I think there is one other important point, and then when I looked through that list, when I saw that report, is there is one thing that is connected to talent retention that is actually missing from this list. And this is something that will actually allow us to be much more agile in reacting to the business needs. And what I talk about here is the understanding what skills actually we've got internally, what are the aspirations of our employees, and then how we match it with the upcoming demand. Today we do it, okay, we're going to have a process transition, we're going to look at the market, do we have the skills? Yeah, okay, we're going. But by the time that we do the transition, the skills may be gone to other companies. And what I talk about is more about instant view of what talent base and aspiration base we've got, and then what is the upcoming demands that we've got in terms of attrition, rotation, because what that will drive is the, skilling programs that we'll no doubt will have to implement. We're going to have to be skilling or reskilling our employees to match that future demand, because it's not going to be available in all the markets instantly. But also, I think it will show, when you talked about that attrition outside of the GBS, it will, employees are coming for us to earn money, to get great benefits, but this is short-term motivation. What they want, what they come to us is also build careers. So through that skilling and reskilling, ensuring them that they actually can be, again, embedded, we're using that word again, in the organization is really, really key. And if we don't look at the technologies which exist today, of what I call, what did I say, Andrew? Let's call it Uber. Uber. So someone wants to ride and someone wants to get in the car.
You called it Tinder.
Okay, called it both. but kind of matching, and understanding the population that we've got and how we can grow with them. I think this is one of the top things that we've got to be thinking about, because we can do as much engagement as we can. People will go if they know that they have better careers elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think, whatever, there was a question. We implemented everything what we could think of. So that was, survey conducted some time ago, right? So do we really know everything what can be implemented? Probably not, right? And this is where this empathy, and listening, it's coming, to place. And I also, again, I like to share personal stories. I have 21 years old son, so you can imagine the level of information I'm getting from him about his preference. But what I think about the sense of belonging, it's a sense of belonging and the purpose-driven culture. It's becoming kind of like a basic thing, right? What do you need to offer to people? It's like, what do you expect? This is what is important. The flexibility. I agree with Philip, right? Flexibility is the key, right? Because we don't know how people will react. Yeah, so it's like an ongoing check and adjust situation, and you need to be prepared for it. You cannot lay the strategy for, something for 5 years because you don't know. Yeah, so we just need to really, move, progress, not perfection. That's what I like to say as well. So I think, the key is development as well. Yeah, for our people, because all the other things we discuss, it's basic. They will expect that. It's not going to be game changer anymore. Yeah, that somebody's giving flexibility and somebody's not giving flexibility. They will make decision, but it's how I can grow. What is my career development? And we can have like a fantastic competency, web-based models being developed, but it truly should be more individual, tailored, HR program for each person who would like to be developed, right? So either reskilling, upskilling, giving people experiences, not it's, and I think, that's one of those things what I believe, It's what each company needs to start thinking about to attract new talent, but also to retain existing talent as well.
One thing to just, as you were talking, Gabriela, there, those careers will be shorter. I mean, some of us have been with companies for a long time because that was our preferred way of working. Those careers will be shorter. So another thing to think about, and maybe that's why the ticketing systems and you know, all of those, it's to retain the knowledge as well. I mean, we have to start focusing on retaining the knowledge, not just talent, unfortunately, because the instant need for change and you know, moving places. We've seen it for years, and I think that's going to just accelerate. So I think that knowledge retention and the process retention as well.
Well, it's the same way that some people saying we are providing heads, some of the others we are providing time. And whether this is the time with the capability. But the one thing remains obvious as a takeaway, I think, from that discussion is that we'll not foresee or forecast the demand that will come to us, the speed of acceleration of the business. But the only thing we can really do is to map ourselves where we are and which way we want to grow our people. And again, for me also the third point comes really a little bit from the IT again. Is that, well, they do see how interesting is the project. So what type of experience you may provide over the time of the project, not only the language of programming versus our environment or culture of the client, but purely how interesting it will be for me. And given the fact that we are, what was seen on this scope slide, have a lot of those individual high-end or individual roles in terms of the roles they are playing in the organization, that would be most probably more and more upcoming argument for retention and attraction of the employees. Thank you very much. Thank you to all panelists. You may all download the report from the link. We will be distributing the full one, but for now, we are also available for the people on site just after this call. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you. And that word time, very, very good. You were good. We try to keep in time. We're actually 30 minutes over time. So I'm going to kind of draw it to a very quick and prompt close now, though there are definitely two words I think that we need to remember from today. One is definitely embedded. I think the other one is definitely empathy. And just for Romek's sake, the one that also rhymes with, or begins with E, is ecosystem. We've fought over that for many years. So thank you very much. Those of us that are here, so the great thing is we've got beer and pizza. I hope the pizza hasn't gone cold, and I hope the beer hasn't got warm. Thank you very much, and see you again in the end of June is our next Kraków calling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.